It's 4:20 somewhere, and right now that somewhere is here. Welcome to the Cannabist Show. Woo. Come on. You guys, you're real people. Clap. All right. And I'm Janae Burris. Here's your host, JakeBrowne. One more time. Hands together.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Cannabist Show. I'm your host, JakeBrowne, and this is where we talk all things weed.
Hashtag all things weed.
And that's the serious marijuana news, along with the fun stuff as well. And if you visit thecannabist.co right now, you can get the latest on one congressman's vow to take any fight over medical marijuana to the Supreme Court.
Also, find out how Boulder Representative Jared Polis flexes on a New Jersey assemblyman. He sent a sternly worded letter. That's what he did.
And you can read about the ongoing battle between the NFL and the NFL's Player Association on weed use.
Oh, and you can still check out Jake's yoga face and stiff joints on our YouTube page. Basketball shorts in a yoga class, Jake, it's like you're not even trying.
I can't believe I still had them from middle school gym class, and that was probably the last time and one was relevant outside of a mixtape. They did look, there was I'm not proud of those gym shorts.
Good. You should show it by leaving them in the garbage.
All right. Promise. Janae, how are you doing?
I'm fantastic. I just spent the week a little bit upset about the proposed health care bill. And so I decided to just get back on my old plan, prayer and weed.
Amen. I love that this has just turned into like, what's Janae upset about this week?
There's always something, guaranteed.
I feel like this is like a real privilege check for me where I'm like, yeah, I had bad basketball shorts. Janae, what are they going to try and take away from you now?
Being a woman's a pre-existing condition. I didn't know.
We're all learning. Now let's go to the week in weed. We're going to kick things off in Oklahoma, where Russell Westbrook isn't the only person with too much free time on his hands.
Ooh,
sorry, Thunder fans. As
dirty.
Some in the town of Norman are pushing back against what they see as overzealous prosecution of local head shop employees. This comes on the heels of a raid on Friendly Market, a store that sold glass pipes near the University of Oklahoma. Now the district attorney is bringing felony charges against owner Robert Cox.
Okay, apparently Friendly's was raided after several undercover sting operations, which, come on, does sound pretty exciting, especially if you live in Oklahoma.
Right, and this is after 2 employees have already been acquitted, including Steven Tyler Holman, seen here looking like he's wearing a bad Leonardo DiCaprio disguise. Holman worked as the general manager of the now shuttered shop, and in true college town fashion, is also a member of the city council. Head shop, city council. It's hard to balance it all. The investigation started soon after he questioned plans to purchase a $280,000 tank for the police department.
Okay, asking for a transparency from your local police department. Rookie mistake.
Step it up, Holman.
Okay, I'm from LA. I know better.
Right. Footing their legal bills is the Washington, D.C.-based DTK Liberty Project, whose clients refused a plea to lesser charges and will continue to fight. We'll have more information as it becomes available. Now to our serious marijuana news of the week and our top story, Trump's first words on cannabis.
The provisions, constitutional, blame Obama, a tremendous big lead. I won the election and reserve the right to do whatever I want.
I love your impression of Alec Baldwin doing an impression of
That's
Donald
all I got.
Trump.
I
It's
never
tremendous.
watched the real one. I never do. I can't.
Fair enough. Our president may be known for the art of the deal, but he is clearly not a fan of some provisions of a $1 trillion spending bill he signed this week.
Okay, in his defense, though, you guys, he probably didn't even read it. So.
Not a big reader. In a letter outlining objections to the legislation, he made it clear that language blocking the use of Department of Justice funds to interfere with medical marijuana implementation would be ignored. In the statement, President Trump wrote, quote, I will treat this provision consistently with my constitutional responsibility to take care that the laws will be faithfully executed, unquote.
Yes, I'm so sure he wrote that. Positive. Okay. Oh, snap. I wrote that. I wrote my own sass. Don't worry, guys. California Representative Dana Rohrabacher was not taking this nonsense lying down and was quoted as saying, marijuana laws in this country have violated every basic principle this country stands for over the last 75 years. It's time to stop, okay? You tell them, Costa Mesa. Give it to them. Give them hell.
Now, this all comes on the heels of a Politico report that the White House will be slashing funding to the Office of National Drug Control Policy, an agency that fights drug addiction with health-focused initiatives. The war on drugs, it seems, is making a resurgence here in America.
Oh, God, not my favorite resurgence. I'd rather see In Vogue make a comeback.
I mean, I think we're all on board with that.
Yes.
Now, let's go to the cannabis policy and business writer Alicia Wallace with this week's Quick Hit.
The cash registers keep ringing for Colorado's cannabis industry, and they're doing so at a record pace. We crunched the March 2017 tax numbers put out by the state to find out that sales at pot shops tallied $131.7 million, breaking the previous monthly record set in September 2016 by almost $4 million. Recreational sales for March also set a record for monthly sales during the last 3 years at $93.3 million. But it was the continued rate of growth that surprised analysts and economists. Sales are still rising at a double-digit clip, with monthly sales up 48% year over year. That rate shows Colorado's marijuana industry hasn't yet capped out, says Andrew Livingston, Director of Economics for Colorado marijuana law firm Vicente Cederberg. He predicted continued record months for April and the summer, and projected sales for the 2017 calendar year to hit $1.6 billion. Check out thecannabist.co for a deeper dive into the sales figures, as well as some thoughts on when a sales plateau may be reached. For The Cannabist, I'm Alicia Wallace with this week's Quick Hit.
Thanks, Alicia. Our first guest today helps people battle opioid addiction with cannabis. Please welcome to the show, Dr. Cali Estes. Hey, Doc. Thank you so much. Please grab a seat. I think that this is such a fascinating topic to me because it's finally a conversation that's taking the national stage. You have Jeff Sessions, who kind of conflates marijuana and heroin use or painkiller addiction together. How long have you been kind of interested in this?
Well, I've been in the industry for 21 years.
Okay.
In the addiction industry. But we've always used marijuana to combat heroin and opiates. It's just now that they're legalizing, it's become a lot easier, is a way to put it.
Sure, and I bet you have a few different options too, right? What's a regimen look like if someone is, addicted to, one of these substances? Where do they start?
Usually, well, conventionally, Trump has you go to detox, where you come in on one drug and come out with 10 little bottles of other things.
Oh,
which is the
so
big
it's like
pharma.
The starter pack for Big Pharma.
Correct. There's actually a meme that says
Collect
that.
all 10.
Exactly. And you get put on Suboxone, which is a low-grade opiate. So our country treats the opiate epidemic with opiates, which makes no sense. So recently, myself and there's a few other people believe, let's take you off the opiates with something simpler, gentler, natural, perhaps, which would be cannabis, which works 10 times better than Suboxone, methadone, or any of the other buprenorphine nonsense that's out there.
Buprenorphine, okay, that's a new one for me. It's interesting because it seems like this has become kind of this third rail conversation where before it was either, you kind of get locked up, you go to recovery, and now, and recovery was always more opioids, just, more scheduled or lower dose, right? But now you've got cannabis that's really coming into the mix. What do success rates look like?
About 90%, because the difference is with the heroin detox, the reason people relapse on heroin is the detox is horrendous. There's vomiting, there's nausea, there's restless leg syndrome, foggy brain, they can't formulate a sentence, and they feel that way for weeks. It's not, well, the throwing up part is about 2 days, but the rest of it is weeks. So they feel sluggish and tired. So if they just take a little bit of Suboxone or a little bit more heroin, suddenly they feel better. But cannabis gets rid of all of that. So you don't have the nausea, you don't have the tiredness, you don't have the restless legs, you don't have the migraine, you don't have any of that.
Right, because I think there's a kind of common misconception with people when we talk about, medical cannabis that, it's used to treat, to cure things. But mostly it's just symptom management, right?
Exactly.
And so what are people, you talked about nausea a little bit. I mean, what else is cannabis helping to do for them? Because, the body clearly still wants more heroin, right?
Well, what happens is the physical detox is the hard part with heroin, unlike cocaine where it's all mental. So heroin, once you stop taking it, the receptors in the brain, so you have to think of it this way.
Okay.
When you have normal receptors, right, they fire and they catch.
Receptor B.
Yep, fire and catch, fire and catch, right? When you do heroin, this happens. Nothing. Because the heroin comes in and does it for you. So think of it like riding a bicycle, right?
Okay.
If you're riding a bicycle and suddenly I give you an electric bicycle.
You're a big goofy guy. Woo.
Right,
Okay.
and you don't have to do any work on an electric bike. What would you rather do?
Oh, I mean, electric bike. I've wanted an electric bike for years, even just a scooter. I think, just a big guy on a scooter. That sounds fun, but not in probably heroin. That sounds scary as hell.
But the brain stops working. It's
Sure.
what happens.
And so when you talk about this 90% success rate, over how many patients, how many people?
Say 10.
Okay.
9 out of 10 will recover. Because
But in your experience, I'm sorry.
that's my experience, yes.
Okay.
9 out of 10.
So how many patients have you worked with, kind of broadly?
Thousands?
Thousands?
Yeah.
Okay, and so you're seeing a 90% success rate. That's amazing.
Correct. If they do what's asked of them. Because
Okay.
it's not just smoke marijuana and you're good. There's also therapy involved in coaching and changing your entire life. You have to do all of those pieces. But cannabis is a lesser, simpler way of managing that detox.
Okay, so when you're talking with somebody who, are there a lot of people that have, get started on painkillers, say, maybe they get in an accident or they're using this to treat symptoms. Are there some of them that have never tried pot before?
Yeah.
And so what's the process like? Take me through it a little bit of trying to say, we're going to get you off these prescribed drugs and we're going to get you onto this illegal Schedule I drug that is cannabis.
So what we do is we can't prescribe. We
Sure.
can recommend. So we say, my recommendation is you go to one of the dispensaries. You walk in and give them the list of symptoms you're having.
Sure.
They then will tell you what the best purchase product is. You then follow their recommendation and come down off the heroin instead of going to detox and getting put on Suboxone, which
Right.
is going to be harder to come off of in the long run and more painful.
Interesting. When you're working with people, what does your clientele look like? Is it, the kid that's kind of, just been messing around with recreational drugs, or what's kind of the average day in the life of Dr. Estes?
I just came off a 13-day stint in Beverly Hills with a high-profile client.
Oh.
So I do actors, actresses, CEOs, NFL, NBA, all the high-profile people who don't want to go to treatment
Sure.
and has to be kept under the radar. So that's what I do. We bring the entire treatment to them.
So you're a fixer.
I am. Did you ever see Scandal?
No, but I hear I should. And now I'm
Olivia
like,
up in here.
have you seen Scandal, Janae?
Well, yeah, we know what she does. Yeah,
Okay.
she gets it done.
That's awesome.
Olivia Pope.
There we go.
Okay, good to know. Like Olivia Pope, I guess.
Get with it, Jake. Oh my
is there a
God.
lady Pope on this? I don't know what's happening. So when you're working with players, I mean, so is that mostly just, painkillers that they were given over the course of their career? Is
Sometimes.
it recreational drugs? What is it?
Sometimes. Usually it's painkillers. A lot of times with them, they end up smoking marijuana as a downtime.
Okay.
Which right now, you know what's going on with the league. They're fighting to decide what are we going to do here.
Right.
I'm in favor of legalizing it in the league. We'd have great players, they'd be fine, and they wouldn't be on all this painkiller nonsense that they're coming off with.
Would that be a competitive advantage for Denver Bronco players? Since they could just walk down and grab their weed?
It might be.
All right. Well, I know a few local listeners that wouldn't mind that. You look at a professional league like the NHL, though, that it doesn't have any interest in testing players. But you said that you now have a client in the NHL?
I have one in the NHL, yeah.
Interesting. And are they? Can you say if they're Canadian?
I can't.
All right.
Probably.
Yeah, that's what
Russian,
I'm thinking.
Canadian,
Now Canada's going
all
like
those.
super big with it. When people are kind of coming off, do you find that they tend to stay with weed, or they tend to go, you know what, I'm gonna get clean altogether?
Most of them get clean altogether because you remember, weed is not their drug of choice. Heroin is. So weed doesn't have the same body benefits that they would get in their heroin, their drug of choice. So they generally say, I want to use it to get through the symptomology, and then they do recover. So then they decide to be abstinent or at least clean from heroin. A couple times they'll stay smoking the marijuana because it keeps them off the heroin. And if you give them a choice, smoke marijuana or do a heroin, well, we all know what's the better of the two.
Fair enough. Is the way that cannabis is evolving now that we have, you know, highly concentrated forms, is that more effective, less effective, no difference?
More effective, because if you have someone doing more heroin, higher dose, they need something that's going to be a higher THC strain than somebody who's doing a less dose.
So you might have somebody that will start off dabbing, for example?
Dabbing is the one thing we don't ask them to do.
Because it looks a lot like freebasing?
Kind of, yeah.
Okay, I mean, I think that's fair.
Yeah.
So it feels very much like the same habit for some people, I'd imagine.
Exactly, and then we end up with them addicted to that, and they don't want to step down. Then they're stuck on that. So we prefer if they do an edible or do a low-grade THC, and that's what we take them to dispensary and let them do a recommendation on that.
Very interesting. If there's somebody out there that's struggling with opioid-based pain, you know, addiction, they are on a lot of painkillers, they have been using heroin for years, what would you tell them?
Try marijuana. It's way better for you. And you don't have all the residual effects. Have you ever read the back of one of those bottles?
They won't let me have the bottles. They do not qualify.
Okay, so you have all these, you know, destroys your liver, destroys your kidneys, can cause death. You have all these things. When it comes to cannabis, what side effects do you have?
Great point. I get hungry. I mean, I get cotton mouth apparently.
You're gonna play Xbox and eat pizza.
Right.
That's about it.
So you have, I guess, for somebody that's like, I don't know where to begin, that's been struggling with this for a while, and maybe they don't have a dispensary. I mean, is it, you know, move to Colorado and clean up your life, or?
Fly to Colorado.
Okay.
And clean up your life, and then fly home. But here, where it's available and it's legal, it's not an issue.
How long do you think it'll be before we see cannabis-based treatment facilities?
There's already one out there.
Really?
Yeah.
Where at?
California.
California?
Of course, California.
Okay, so you go to California first. I mean, we're looking at, we have, as we talked about in the top of the show, Donald Trump's administration looking at cutting the ONCHP, I want to say the acronym is, and focusing less on the treatment path. Do you think that there's any way to incorporate cannabis in that treatment on a federal level?
Our government is so ridiculous. I mean, they say that this is a bad drug. They scheduled it level 1 with heroin. That's the first problem.
Right.
They don't even know what they're dealing with. So they have to learn and educate themselves on what it is first, what it can do, and then maybe they'll catch up with the rest of us.
Awesome. Dr. Estes, thank you so much. We're going to have more with you. Hang out on the couch. But first, let's go to our own herb wordsmith, Professor Pat, with this week's entry into the new Cannabist lexicon.
Bong water. The foul-smelling, sewer-like liquid sloshing around at the bottom of a water pipe or bong, which you really need to change, by the way. Bored stoners in the past have tried drinking it to get even higher, which is not recommended. Quote, "My roommate kicked over the bong, and now the whole dorm reeks like bong water."
Thanks, Professor. Our second guest teaches single dudes how to cook when she's not working as the creative director for a cannabis brand expanding to the U.S. Welcome to the show, Jill Ferris.
Hey, hello, how are you?
Thank you so much for coming on.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Estes, Jill, all right, we're all here. I am so excited to have you on.
Thank you.
I love your videos.
Oh, thank you very much.
Unabashed fan. And I think that it's cool that now you're incorporating cannabis. Can you talk a little bit more about your super cool channel?
My super cool channel. So basically, yeah, I started my own cooking show when, you know, about 8 years ago, when everybody, you know, YouTube was coming up and everybody was making shows, and I always wanted to do that. So I make my own show and I instruct people, I call it Cooking for Bachelors, because I believe everybody can learn to cook. you know,
and everyone
teach a
has
man
an
to
inner
fish.
bachelor?
Right. And you know what? There's so many singles, and you know, living in New York City in an urban area, it's so easy just to take out or you know, pick up a pizza, and
You're in one of the greatest food cities in the world.
yes.
I like how bachelor sounds too, cooking for bachelors, because it sounds sexier than for lonely people.
Exactly. Well,
Cooking for
all right,
a lonely man cooking
I use the word bachelor because of, you know, the
love it.
Bachelor,
It's sexier.
you know, show, and exactly. And we reach 70, our audience is 75% male millennials, which is, talk about reaching your target audience, yes.
Well, I mean, good on millennials. They're getting their hands dirty.
They do, and they're starting to cook for themselves, and also they love to know where their ingredients come from. So, you know, like the organic and stuff like that. And it's such a perfect segue to start, you know, cooking with cannabis for this audience.
Where does your cannabis come from in New York City? It's like the guy with the backpack that shows up. Like I send the text message. It's sourced from Johnny on the bike. So
yes, from under someone's ball sack. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, I mean, you just did. No, I think so. Are there people that are doing their own infusions? Is that kind of hey, listen, if you can make this? And that's on their own behest, I guess.
There's a company in New York that's literally making a whole line of edibles. That's amazing. I mean.
Listen, I've been in the city before. I don't know how it works. I'm not some country bumpkin out here in Denver. I've mixed it up with a delivery service or two.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So it's really, and so you have kind of parlayed this. You have some great instructional videos as well, tackling subjects like decarboxylation.
Yes, making canna butter.
So how did you come to get involved in Tikun Olam? Did I say it correctly?
Tikun Olam.
Thank you.
Tikun Olam. Well, it's a miracle.
Yeah?
It really is a miracle. I really wanted to be in the cannabis industry.
Sure.
And I just networked. I became involved with Women Grow. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a national network.
We had Leah Hyson not too long ago,
yes.
Former CEO.
Yes. And and I just felt like I can do it, and I just met the right people. They were looking for a creative director, and boom.
So what is the creative director? Because there are a lot of people that are like, hey, you know, I have some soft skills. I'd love to get into the cannabis industry without having to know too much about cannabis. It sounded like you had the cannabis knowledge, but also kind of made this position. What do you do?
Okay, it's a great possibility if you don't want to touch the plant as an ancillary business, whether you run your own agency or work for a large company. Design everything that you see visual, the logo, the packaging, the social media, all our marketing materials, web materials, etc.
Now, how much of your background doing this YouTube channel kind of helped you build that resume?
Actually, I've been a creative director most of my career.
Okay.
So it was the creative director part that helped me do the
YouTube
TV
channel,
show. Right, exactly. Right, all of that time of supervising other people's videos, you know, art directing, photo shoots and stuff like that. So it's a perfect job for me. I say it's a godsend because I've lived in Israel. I've been there many, many times, so I have a connection to the country. I love cannabis. I am a lifelong user, probably more years than you've been alive.
Hey now! I'm glad I'm looking good for 34. That's how old I am, right? So tell us a little bit about the company, because for some people that aren't familiar, Israel has been outpacing most of the world in terms of medical marijuana research for years. What was Tikun Olam's kind of relationship with that? Well,
you know, the National Institute of Health has actually been sponsoring Dr. Meshulam for his studies, you know, who I
was just here in Colorado like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. It was such a pleasure. I call the Yoda of cannabis.
I mean, a little less furry, but yeah, that's great.
Because, I mean, basically the endocannabinoid system, you know, he discovered, he isolated THC and CBD, and also came up with the entourage effect and discovered the combination of THC, CBDs, your terpenes, etc., really make the effect as medicine. 10 years ago, Tikun Olam began actually as a volunteer effort. Yeah. They just started the farm.
Volunteers to smoke weed?
Right.
How are we going to find them this week?
Well, you know, it is like you plant it, you pick it, you smoke it kind of
beautiful.
thing. Yes,
okay.
Isn't it? Right.
Yeah.
So they were providing for their patients the ability to get the medicine.
And now what does it look like shifting what was, I'm sure, what looked very different in Israel here to the U.S.?
Well, first of all, it's been 10 years. Tikun has been in existence for 10 years, and we've been developing exclusive strains. They have their own names, their own combinations of THC, CBD. And,
is it similar to the U.S. where some of it's kind of funky, like green crack or Gorilla Glue or other G names, or is it a little more refined?
Well, a lot of our names are Hebrew.
Okay.
Yes, but our three-star players are Alaska, Midnight, and Avidekel. So Avidekel is Hebrew. Some of our other strains, Erez or an
It all sounds so beautiful. I feel like I've just been smoking like a redneck pot. Like the Mad Dog 3030 over here. You're just enjoying a nice chateau something. Okay.
Well, the benefit of our strains is that we have 10 years of medical records. We have over 8,000 patients in our database, which is the largest medical database for cannabis that exists in the world.
So you have that kind of that foundation, and now what's going on in the U.S.? Is it going to be retail locations? Is it more research based? What's the plan?
Actually, all of the above. So what we're looking to is go
Jill's line of edibles too.
I'm hoping.
Yeah, I'm on board already.
Build a kitchen. Let's build a kitchen.
Kosher edibles.
Kosher edibles.
I don't think I've ever seen a kosher.
Well, the plant is kosher. It's been certified kosher. So yes, right. So we are already in Delaware in the medical market. We are growing in Nevada.
That's
so
exciting.
We're already in the medical market.
Okay, the Nevada part. I mean Delaware. Okay.
Right. And we are already growing in Washington State, and we have plans of expanding to California and
who knows what's going to happen in California.
blah, blah.
But yeah, that's the great thing is that there are always places to expand, especially with everything kind of taking off. Do you imagine that you'll stay more on the medical side, or do you see there being like a recreational aspect too?
Well, there's always a recreational aspect, but we try not to call it recreational. We try to look at it as wellness, okay? Because
wellness isn't this fun. I mean, you saw me doing yoga, Janae. That wasn't wellness.
Canna yoga.
It was not well.
Well, we're looking at maintaining the medical quality grade of our cannabis, and to continue treating patients and collecting when we can, because there are HIPAA rules in the medical field. So when we can, to continue accumulating information from patients, and maybe even R&D, definitely R&D, but adjust the strains once again and come out with each market whatever their needs are.
I couldn't think of anybody more qualified or well positioned to do some of that research and development, because you look at, we're so far behind here in the States. Do you think that the U.S. will be able to stay competitive with so much that's going on in the Middle East and Europe right now?
I think this plant is going to grow in spite of everything. I think it's, the more you look at, what people like this doctor's doing, and people that I see that are treating their children and their parents and themselves. I also have a couple of people that work in a company or brand ambassadors, also had addiction problems from accidents. One was a soldier in the Israeli army. He lost a limb and he became addicted to opiates. And when you see the success stories of cannabis, you can't help it. It's just it's gonna spread.
Absolutely.
Spread the word, spread the good word.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to bring Callie back in really quickly. We always try and ask everybody when they come to this show, what is your preferred consumption method? So some people like flower, they like concentrates, they like edibles. We even had one person say topicals. So what's your go-to?
Topical would be my go-to, because I've got some bad shoulder and bad neck, and every time I use it, it's instant.
That's why. Okay, so do you have a preferred topical? This always turns into plugs where I'm like,
no
would
plug.
you like to mention anybody specific?
I'm like, tell me.
My stepson's best friend's girlfriend has a spa in Longmont. So
Okay.
I use her product because A, they're free. B, that's
a good product.
Longmont, Colorado.
Longmont, Colorado.
What's the name of it? I could get
You know,
onto
I
that.
don't know, but after the show, I will let you know
Oh,
what it is.
man.
I just get it and I use it and I don't
Okay.
even think about it. But
Now, does it have anything that, because that's the real issue with topicals, is does it have any DMSO or anything that's going to break the blood barrier? Okay, this is extra scientific Jake talking right now, but
it comes to the house, it's free, it works, that's all I
now,
know.
do you get like a head high or anything from it,
No,
or is
I
it
don't get
No,
just
you don't.
relaxation muscles? Or?
All muscle, because I have
Okay.
a torn subscap.
Oh.
So there's nothing to do for that. It's scar
Right.
tissue, except yoga, which, you know, works when you have decent pants, but not all the time.
Got pants problems. It's not the
Yeah.
first time. It's not the last time. So that's really interesting. What about you?
No, well, I actually like a whole salad, but I start with flour,
Okay.
and then a little vape, and sometimes edibles if I'm in a situation where I want the party to last a long time.
Okay, so it's really just totally situational for you.
Totally situational, yes.
But not topicals.
I love topicals, but the topicals
got
are
it
not
all.
psychoactive.
Sure.
There's actually kind of two types of topicals. One is a transdermal, which is made for like body aches and things like that.
Right.
And then there's also one that's more made from oils for topicals if you have skin ailments, burns, cuts, you know. And I use it as night cream and moisturizer.
Night cream?
Yeah, I always have a jar in my bag.
Oh, is it like, so you put it on before you go to sleep?
It's an all oil base with cannabis, and it's beautiful. I use
You
it
have
on my
amazing
hands and-
skin, so I'm going to try that because
There you go.
these crow's
There you
feet are
go.
about to fly right up. Okay.
It works.
Thank you. Because I know some people that'll use topicals that are hemp oil based that don't have any THC in them, that are a little bit richer in CBD, and they'll say, yeah, my tennis elbow, gone, like all that inflammation, psoriasis, things like that. I don't have any studies to back this up, but you know, anecdotally I hear this. So when you're talking about, you know, this salad, you know, a little flour, some, and a vape pen.
And a vape, yeah.
So there's vape pens in New York, eh? I feel like such a narc right now.
I know, right?
Jill, tell me all your secrets. No, I mean that's really interesting. I think that there are so many different ways to consume. One thing that I'd like to talk about is what are the options for athletes? Because this keeps coming up. I've been at some different symposiums, and even things like hemp are still very controversial. Talking to players, and I'm like, why wouldn't you ever try hemp protein powder instead of, you know, whey protein? Whey protein, not very good, very bloating.
Right.
And they said, listen, even with no THC, we'd never touch it because they have to be so conscientious of what's going into their body. What can we do for these guys? Especially, I think NFL players are the worst.
I mean,
have
a
the
lot
worst.
of players are really advocating, especially for CBD. Like our strain Avidecal was the first developed. It's 99% CBD with just a little bit of THC. It's a whole plant.
What does it look like? Does it kind of look? Does it grow more like hemp? Is it stringier? Or is it?
It's a little sensitive,
enough.
but it is an indica.
Sure.
You know, and it grows like everything else. And, but so what's happening is the CBD is being used to reduce inflammation in the brain, and there's some, you know, this is very important because you can't detect this inflammation with testing. You can only detect it after a person died.
Yeah, is that the CTE that
Yes,
we're
right,
talking about, or
exactly.
repeated head trauma? And so that's it. Because you've got Roger Goodell, who just came out, I want to say last week, and we're just not sure when this is going to air. And he was talking about how it was, you know, pot isn't safe for people, that you have to smoke it, and we all know smoking isn't good. So you're talking about CBD, but isn't there some argument that, you know, THC and CBD have a very synergistic relationship, and CBD alone might not be as effective?
Yes, the whole plant is much more effective. So the hemp CBD is really grown for industrial purposes, and you really need the cannabis plant to get the benefits, the full benefits of CBD.
And are you seeing active players that go, you know, I wish I could do these things for my health, I can't, and they're kind of put in this bind, or is it mostly former players going, hey, I need to get my life back together?
For me, it's the latter. So I
Okay.
get the player who's already discharged, who's out, who may have brain injury, who definitely has injuries,
Right.
and they say, I don't want to be stuck on Oxycontin the rest of my life. What do I do? And now you're not drug tested. So now we have other different alternatives. So it's a lot easier once they're out. But when they're in, it's really tough. Because what happens is they're put on the pain medication for a certain amount of time. And the doctor goes, okay, now you don't need it. But in reality, they may still need it. Plus, they're going to detox from it. Right. So they try to do it in the off season. That's why you see them getting caught in Vegas smoking weed or getting caught here doing that. It's because they're not treated medically properly, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's...
what's the big opposition to it, I wonder, with the NFL? It makes me suspicious that there's something to do with money, usually, with the NFL. But if it's really helping people and take away their pain, I don't know why they're...
So you know what's really messed up about this is my understanding is that it's essentially a bargaining chip for the owners to hold over the players and say, well, if you'd like to give up some money or if you'd like to give up X, Y, and Z, play more games, we'd be happy to give you the weed. And so it's turned the players' health into this weird bargaining chip, unfortunately.
That makes
But
no
they're
sense.
allowing them to use painkillers during games. They're allowing them like Ativan and things like that also, you know, and yet they're not allowing cannabis.
Well, and that's the old story, right? Is to go in at halftime, shoot them up, and send them back out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't imagine that playing just, you know, loaded on all of these drugs can be very good for anybody's long-term health.
No, and then coming off, it's ridiculous. So they don't give them the proper medical care to come off either. It's sort of like, okay, you know, now the season's over, no more medicine, good luck. Have a nice summer.
Are players ever tested for painkillers or opioids?
They are.
They are?
If they're prescribed them, the test is viewed.
It's okay, yeah.
Right.
So...
That's okay. I mean, it destroys your body.
Yeah, that's it. That's the answer, Jake. What else do you want? Makes no sense.
All right, speaking of answers, it's time to go to the pot quiz. Dun, 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 dun.
Here we go.
Everyone's favorite part of the show. Who wants to start? Nope. All right. Hey, I like that. An enthusiastic
Always raise my hand.
Is this a team effort? Do we get to do it team effort?
No, I'm going to pit you against each other after such an amicable...
No huddle.
All right, we'll start with you, Question number 1. Are you ready? Okay. In the Norman, Oklahoma case that we spoke about earlier, they collected $4,000 from the Friendly Mart under civil asset forfeiture rules. So they collected $4,000. A San Diego district attorney has ordered the return of how much money to a distributor there?
$100,000.
That is correct! Firing! I had 3 potential answers. One of them I thought was funny.
You can't.
Oh wait, was I supposed to wait for the first?
No, you were ready. You got him.
This happens like once every 6 shows. I'm not going to stop you. You're on fire.
Okay, all right.
All right, Joe on the board, 1 point.
Uh-oh, Callie.
Go to Callie.
You have to. Callie now has to guess your question.
She's a mentalist too. We never would have known. All right, so question number 2. A Seattle police officer was busted for smuggling weed to where on the East Coast? Was it A, Baltimore, B, New York City, C, King of Prussia, or D, Assateague Island?
That's in Maryland, that's right. It's Assateague Island, but that's not the answer. The answer is probably King of Prussia.
I'm sorry, that is incorrect. You have a chance to steal.
Baltimore.
That is correct.
Oh, I did my homework.
You broke the bell. That's a good job. The bell's like, just give it
There used to be a monkey who did this job, and I'm no good at it.
All right, Jill, back to you with the chance to seal the deal. A New Jersey incumbent Assemblyman Parker Space recounted a story from a constituent about a trip to Boulder in which people were, quote, lying in the walkable town center, stoned, dirty, and like blank. Is it A, hippies, B, zombies, C, cannibals, or D, residents of the Jersey Shore?
Is all
Take
of the
that, Parker
above?
Space.
I'm going to say zombies.
That is correct. That is a clean sweep. Congratulations, you're our winner. All right. Thank you so much to Dr. Callie Estes and Jill Ferris for joining us today. And thanks to everyone who's tuning into our brand new YouTube channel, like commenter D'Lo, who left us a good job, guys. Appreciate it, D'Lo. Thanks, D'Lo. For Janae Burris, producer Vince, and the whole Cannabis Show crew, I'm Jake Browne, and we'll see you next week. Hey, great show.
I'm all in, I'm calling any posse you'll be raising at the end. I say it again, ain't afraid to get in. I be going for the jackpot with ace in my hand, I'm raw.